Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. I'm your host, Tamara. Today we are sharing 10 ways to read more books. If you would like to see the video format of this podcast without commercials, you'll need to head on over to Patreon and sign up. Don't forget, you can also join me and my two co-hosts over on the Book Clubs app for even more bookish chats. Please subscribe and like the podcast wherever you're listening. And if you'd like to reach out to me, you can find me everywhere at Shelf Addiction. Joining me is feature co-host Casey from Heart Full of Ink. Welcome back, Casey.
Hello. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, I'm glad you're here as well. We have a good convo today.
Yes.
Before we start, tell everyone where they can find you.
You can find me anywhere, Facebook, Instagram, under Heart Full of Ink. Instagram is Casey_Heart Full of Ink.
All right. So we should jump in. We got 10 cool ideas for you guys. So I thought this would be a good topic for us because we're in May. We're coming up on half the year. I know everyone set New Year's goals and resolutions. It's about time to check in on those. And if you need some help getting over the hill of your books, or if you're in a freeze or a standpoint, this would be some good advice, I think, for you guys.
Oh, yeah. Good advice any time of the year. Come back to us, next January when you start your reading goals. Come back to us literally any time in the year.
Absolutely. And full disclosure, I'm a fan of breaks. I'm team break. So, if you're just not into it, you're just not into it. But if you want to get back on that horse or you need a little bit of help, we're here. We're here for you. We got you.
Always. We got you.
Yes. Okay. So shall we start? Do you want to start with number one?
I can start with number one.
Okay.
So number one is set a reading goal for yourself, such as a certain number of books to read in a month or a year. And I would suggest, whatever works for you, works for you. You can pick one book per week. You can pick one book per month. You can pick one book per quarter, or literally one book per year. If you think it's going to take you a year to read a book, that is okay. Don't shame yourself.
Yeah, I am a fan of goal setting, and I'm a person who likes to check the box, right?
Yes.
So I think if you're the kind of person who likes to check the box and you like to see when you've completed tasks, then setting reading goals is great, especially when you see the number tick somewhere like on Goodreads.
Mm-hmm.
But with that said, you have to be careful of that because you don't want to have too many goals or get too crazy with it, because sometimes people do, I'm going to read 5 mysteries, 20 nonfiction. I'm going to do this bingo card, that theme, this, and it starts to be overwhelming and most people don't finish anything.
Yes. If it's too much, you will get overwhelmed and shut down and not do it. Because that's life. That's humans, We have jobs to do. We have kids to take care of. We have lives to live. Not many people are going to read 600 books in a year.
Yeah.
Probably not going to read 200 books in a year. It's what works for you, what works for your life, what works for your goal setting. And like I said, one book per year is totally a good goal. And if that's all you can do, perfect. If you can read 4 books in a year, perfect.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And don't compare yourself to anyone else with your goals. And I mean, not to be really businessy here, but in business, we talk about SMART goals. And I think this applies to books as well. Pretty much to anything, because this helps you keep it reasonable with what your expectations are. So if you don't know what SMART goals are, so it's be specific, right? So target a number or a specific, whatever your goal is, right? Make it specific, make it measurable. So you do that by, having metrics for yourself or quantifying it by saying 1 a year, 1 a week, whatever your goal is, 1 a month, and make sure it's achievable, which is what Casey was saying. If dude, last year you read 3 books, don't come say you're going to read 50 books.
Yeah, don't put pressure on yourself.
Because that's not achievable, and it's surely not realistic, which is the R of SMART.
Yes.
It's not realistic. And finally, timely, right? So when are you going to achieve this goal by? as long as you fall within that parameter, I think everyone can meet their goals. So,
Absolutely, yes.
yeah, I love that. I guess I could say thank you to my business degree for something.
The one good thing it taught you.
I know, right? Oh my goodness. Okay, so that's number 1. So,
Mhm.
number 2 is to make reading a part of your daily routine, such as reading for 30 minutes before bed each night. Now, me personally, I'm not really a night reader,
Mhm.
because at night I unwind by watching TV or listening to a podcast, or even I do listen to audiobooks sometimes if it's not too late.
Mhm.
But I like to read during my lunch hour or, just different points in the day. Like, for example, I've gotten into the habit, I have to go back to the office several days a week now. So I've gotten into the habit where my morning drive is an audiobook.
Mhm.
My lunch is a book I'm reading.
Mhm.
And my afternoon drive is a podcast. I switch it up, right?
That's good. That gives you something, yeah,
Yeah.
something to work with. I have a friend who runs every day. She runs like a mile a day and she listens to her audiobook while she runs. And that's really
Mm,
her only free time to read. And she's like, I get my exercise in for the day and I get my reading in at the exact same time.
yeah, I like that. You can get lost in that too,
Oh,
especially like if
absolutely.
the book is really good. You're just like, oh my gosh, an hour has passed already, or
Keep
30 minutes, or
running.
whatever. Yeah, just keep going. I love that. How do you do yours? How do you usually squeeze your daily reading in?
So I do it just throughout the day. So back before I was an editor, back when I was working retail many, many years ago, absolutely just like you, I might listen to an audiobook while driving because that's the best time for me is
Mm-hmm.
driving and audiobooks. When I had my lunch breaks, always like my book was out before my food was out. I was reading the entire time. Um, yeah, I read before bed. I read all whenever I could squeeze it in.
Yeah. Yeah, for us that work 9 to 5s and you're in a corporate setting or even
Mhm.
not a corporate setting, coworkers get on your nerves.
Mhm.
You need a break. And there's nothing better than jumping into a world that you're enjoying to
Yes.
like really separate yourself and then come back refreshed. So I'm a fan of lunchtime reading specifically. I love it.
And if you struggle with like making it a habit and remembering to do it, you can set reminders on your phone. There are a million and one apps that are like habit trackers. And you can,
Mhm.
again, check that box to be like, I read for 20 minutes today. I remembered. Let's let's check it off. Because,
Yeah.
check marks are pretty and you can give yourself a little sticker if you want.
Yeah, and again, you can start small too.
Hmm.
So if you aren't in the habit of reading at all and you think 30 minutes is too much or you wander or can't stay focused, you can do 10-minute increments
Absolutely.
or 15. Set a Pomodoro timer and like
Hmm.
let yourself do sprints, right? And get up and do other things. You don't have to have 30 minutes of reading or,
You can
it could be
also
as
do
short as
it
10 minutes.
by the pages. You can say, I'm just going to read
Yeah.
5 pages. I'm going to read half a chapter. I'm going to read one sentence.
Mhm.
Whatever works for you works for you. And we're going to keep
Yeah.
saying this over and over again. Don't judge yourself. Don't compare yourself
Yeah.
to others.
Even though it's hard. I know it's hard because like I look at my little like I think I'm usually between on a really heavy quote unquote reading year for me, it's like 60 something books.
Hmm.
And on a light year, I'm like struggling to get right past 52 because I usually do one book a week, right? Minimum.
Hmm.
And sometimes I look at people who have 200 or 300. I'm like, WTF, are you reading these books? I feel a way. I'm like, oh my gosh, my little measly 52 books. But other people look at me and they're like, oh my God, how do you read 52 books? So
Hmm. Yeah. Don't
perspective,
don't
right?
compare yourself. And again,
Yeah.
like I saw that happening at the end of December, beginning of January, when people are in the Facebook groups comparing, oh, this is my reading list, and somehow somebody has 650 books on their list. And I'm just like, genuinely, I don't understand how you read 600, over 600 books in a year, but good for
Mhm.
you.
Mhm.
Good for you. Like,
Yeah.
if you can do that, good for you.
Yeah, I no shade. Do what you can do, girlies and men, gentlemen. If you can read that, you go for it. But me personally, I would forget half of what I read if I read that many books a year.
I would forget more than half. I'd be like,
Yeah,
maybe remembering 100 of those 600. Like that's 2 books a day or more.
that's almost for sports or for
Mhm.
work. It's got to either be for work, if that's your job to be reading books, or if like you are just like I must win competitive and you just read the most. But I read for like enjoyment
Mhm.
and, you know, escapism. So I really want to get the fullness out of what I'm reading. So although I have read one book already this year, I talked about on another episode where I forgot what the whole damn book was about, and that was in January. So I
I mean, it
don't
happens.
know.
It happens. We forget sometimes. It's okay.
I'm like, wait, what happened to that book again? I don't know. Must not been that good. Oh my gosh. All right. What's our number
Oh,
three?
number 3. Let me open my phone. Number 3, join a book club or reading group to stay motivated and discuss books with others. So,
Okay.
we have talked about many book clubs over the years. If you want an in person book club, I would say the first thing you should do is go to your local library or your local bookstore, because they usually have multiple book clubs that meet in person. They'll have genres, they'll have themes, and always support your local libraries because libraries are amazing. But
So I have a little different recommendations for you. Like my library, I think are a bunch of old people. Like no offense. No
no.
offense, old people. But you know, depending on the grouping you want. Do you want to
Mhm.
go out and have wine with people and talk? Do you want, figure out what your vibe is, right? And
Mhm.
then find the group that fits your vibe. So
Yes.
like I'm in several book clubs. So I have online book club for shelf addiction. I have 2 in-person book clubs.
Mhm.
One is heavily focused on wine and cocktails. We will talk about the book, drink it, have a good time. And then the other one, we like trying different restaurants, right? So find what your vibe is, and a good way to find different groups also is using this app called Meetup.
Yes.
You can find local groups that like to do what you like, and you could
Mhm.
just go for 1 or 2 groups meetings and see if it's for you. Also the book clubs app, where shelf
Mhm.
addiction is for the online book club, they also host in-person book clubs on there as well. Based on where you live, you can search by where you live. And I think when you use the apps, you might find a slightly younger crowd sometimes. So just try to find what your vibe is and
Mhm.
who you're comfortable talking with, right? And seek that out. So
Yes.
if you want all women, look for all women. If you don't mind a mixed group, go with a mixed group. If you don't like to go out to eat and spend money, maybe stick to a library where they meet in the library. So just find what your pace is. That's the best part about book club.
Absolutely. And the other thing I was going to say is make sure you find the genre you like. Because if you find a book club that reads all historical, fiction that's taking place in World War II and it's very heavy and detailed and that's not your jam, don't join that book club, right?
Don't join that group. Yes.
Go find the romance book club or go find the thriller book club or whatever. And yeah, there are
Yeah.
millions of book clubs online. You can search for the super monster smutty book clubs on Facebook and meet 1,000 people who like the same tentacle porn as you, right? You might not
Yeah.
live in the same place, but you can meet people online and have those conversations and talk about books or ask for recommendations. So in person, online, and again, like you can create your own too. If you have a core group
Mhm.
of friends and you all decide that you want to start reading and you like a similar genre, you can meet at your living room and, share a bottle of wine and some cheese and talk about a book. Like, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It can be 3 people.
Yeah. But to be fair, as someone who has started several book clubs can be hard to keep together, in-person
Yes.
book clubs, because everyone has their own priorities, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if it's something you're up to the task to do
Mm-hmm.
it. If you're not, just join one that is already
Yes.
working, that's already meeting, you know what I mean? So it can be difficult, especially when, and this is a little off topic, but I'm a fan of not all of your friend groups mashing together. You
Yes,
don't have to have
absolutely.
all your friends groups mashing. So if you have hardcore reader friends, invite those friends. Don't invite your
Mm-hmm.
bestie if she don't love reading,
Mm-hmm.
right? Don't invite people that you know that aren't down for the task at hand. Yeah, because that's a part of book club. You will talk about the book,
Oh,
hopefully.
yeah. Oh,
Some
yeah.
book clubs don't. Some book clubs don't. So I guess it's what's your vibe?
Exactly. Exactly. It just,
Yeah.
and make it fun. You want it to be a fun, interactive group. Talk about the book, drink wine, eat cheese. But yeah, have fun with it.
Yeah, because you know what ends up happening after a long amount of time, like this one book club I'm in. I've been in that club for like 10 years, and we
Wow.
all know each other well. We've been on trips together. We've gotten to the point where we're doing non-book club events together. So we still meet for book club,
Mm-hmm.
but we're doing other things together because we've all gotten to know each other really well. So there's so many possibilities when it comes to that. Just be open
Mm-hmm.
and willing to dive in, and you never know what you can find.
Yeah.
So next up, keep a list of books you want to read and track your progress. So that was kind of like leading into what we said with setting a goal and checking the box.
Mm-hmm.
But I am a fan of a TBR list. That might motivate some.
Personally, I think it's easier to achieve a goal if I know exactly what I'm doing. Like if I say, I'm going to read 4 books, but you don't pick any books, that feels a little too arbitrary for me. But if you go say, I
Yes.
want to read these 4 specific books, then you know exactly what you're going to do and you can
Yes.
schedule your goals around them.
Yeah, and you can always change it. So, like, I
Hmm.
have what I call a never ending TBR list. That thing is always growing. I'm always
Oh,
taking
God, yes.
recommendations. And so, along with a list, I'm also a mood reader. So, I'm like a
Hmm.
two for one. So, I might say, okay, I'm going to read X, Y, and Z this month, fully intending to, but have no problem changing it out.
Yes.
No problem.
Yes. Yes. Follow the
Hmm.
mood. Follow the mood.
Yeah.
I'm keeping track of your TBR, Goodreads is a good place to keep track of it. Amazon wish list, if somebody recommends a book, put it on the wish list. Barnes and Noble also has a wish list app, so, I'm sure the indie bookstores do too. You can also just keep an apps note in your phone. Or if you need like the physical book in front of you and you know the 4 books you want to read, buy the 4 books and put them on your bedstand, you know,
Yeah. That's a
and
good
then
one.
pick one up at a time.
It's a slippery slope, though. Be
It
careful.
is. It
I've
really
seen
is.
groups of people who were this whole shelf is a TBR shelf, and they've spent hundreds of dollars on books and never read one book. So be careful of that.
I mean, that's me. Thank you for calling me out like that. I buy books that I plan on reading someday, and someday is going to come eventually. But I've read
Oh
like
my
half the
gosh.
books on my bookshelf.
Oh my gosh. I'm like the opposite of that. Like, I don't think there's any book on my shelf that's I've purchased that I haven't read. I usually, this is a whole nother conversation, but quick side note, I will spend too much money on a book, or meaning I will either get the audiobook and listen, or the ebook, or I'll get it from the
Mhm.
library, and if I love it, then I'll buy it and put it on the shelf. So I go the opposite way. Sometimes that means spending more money.
I get a lot of books from the library, but I also get a lot of books from the bookstore or the thrift shop, or people are like, I love this book so much, you have to buy it right now. And I'm like, who am I to say no? I will buy this book right now.
Give me all
I
the
need all of the
books.
books.
Well, when it comes to building a TBR list, I have another suggestion for you
Okay.
guys. So, like, let's say you don't have the biggest group of readers as friends, or you haven't really found your community yet online, then definitely go to Amazon and check out like the bestsellers list. That can help you, like for your genre. Let's say you like thrillers, you really don't know where to start, right?
See,
Goodreads has it too. Those are good options to get you warmed up if you don't
I
have
have a
people that you
totally
can.
different idea for that. So instead of going to
Okay.
the lists, like the New York Times list is meh, like
I don't
I
trust the
don't
New
trust
York
the New York
Times
Times
list.
list. I say go to the bookstore and ask the bookseller, or go to the library and ask the librarian, because they are reading these books themselves. And you can ask them very specific questions like, hey, I want a book where there is absolutely no dogs dying. Like, I cannot deal with dogs dying. Can you find that for me? And they can be like, yeah,
Yeah.
here's a thriller, the dog lives. Whereas on an Amazon
Mm-hmm.
chart, you don't know if the dog lives or not. Somebody might say it
Mm-hmm.
in a review, but you don't know for certain. You can also
That's a
get
good
more
idea.
specific. Like, I want a book set in the 1940s that does XYZ and has this stuff and that stuff, and a librarian or bookseller will be like, I got you. Here's this perfect book for
Mm-hmm.
you. So that's really
Yeah.
more personal as opposed to
Mm-hmm.
charts, which is just sales. And sales doesn't
Yeah.
always relate to good quality. It's just good
Yes, but that's
marketing.
why my second part is check the
Yeah,
comments
check
and the
the
reviews.
reviews.
Yeah. Even with recommendations from librarians and other people, even from me and Casey,
Yes.
check the reviews, because the reviews will just make sure you check for spoilers if you don't want to be spoiled. But like if you have certain hard no's or things that you don't like,
Mm-hmm.
or if you're seeing things that, for example, if I see too many people say that something is slow paced, it's going to turn me off.
Mm-hmm.
If I hear too many people say his characters were stupid and I couldn't relate, it's going to turn me off. So those will be like, a great like way to close the gap and get closer to something you'll enjoy before you add it to your list.
Yes.
And when it comes to building TBRs, just because they get out of control, like I think I mentioned, my TBR list is really long. I have started another form of a TBR list, and it's really just I might read someday list. That's literally what it's tagged.
Mm-hmm.
So on my TBR things, I know I really trust the recommendation, or I've done my due diligence with the research and I know I'm going to read this eventually.
Yes.
And then on the may read someday list goes everything else. Random suggestions. Oh, that cover looks good. Oh, I heard someone say that was good.
Mm-hmm.
Things that just, I haven't done the due diligence. So I have two lists to go to when I'm feeling a vibe for something, and I can scroll through them and see, well, what best fits.
Yes. And that's wonderful. That, I think that's a really
Yeah.
brilliant way to split it up, to be like, these absolutely I'm going to read. These, maybe I'll pick it up, maybe I won't. And that
Mm-hmm.
takes so much of the pressure off of it for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was 4, right?
Yes.
So
Number 5. Take advantage of audiobooks or ebooks if you have trouble finding time to sit down with a physical book.
yes.
Yes.
Now, y'all know I love a good audiobook. I listen to a lot of audiobooks. It really helps me because when I work from home, I can listen to an audiobook and answer emails, mundane tasks that don't take too much brain
Mm-hmm.
energy. And I can get a lot read really quickly, listening at 1.5 to 2x, depending on the narrator.
Mm-hmm.
Knock them things out. So I'm a fan of audio, and I'm also, and this is kind of new to me, but recently, and by recently, I mean this year, 2023, I've started listening to some books on graphic audio.
Mm-hmm.
So graphic audio is classified as full cast, cinematic music, sound effects, audiobook entertainment. So, for example, I liked Court of Thorns and Roses, the second book, especially Court of Mist and Fury. So I listened to the audiobook, and when I was done, I saw that. I said, oh, wait, let me listen again this way.
All over again.
And I did all over again. And it was so different because it's not one or two narrators. It's like every person has their own voice.
Wow.
You can hear the wind whipping when they're going from the different castles and stuff. It is the most different experience ever. And it's so enjoyable. And I especially love it for fantasy.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. For me, when I'm listening to audiobooks, I need to be doing something like stupidly mindless, like driving or cleaning. I can't write emails and think about the story at the same time because then, I start typing out what I'm hearing.
Oh
no. But yeah, audiobooks are good just to like have on in the background, especially if you like the narrator, if you like the story, if it's something you've read before and want to revisit but don't want to like sit down and read it all over again. I was also going to suggest, finding different styles, not just ebooks, but, graphic novels. I semi-recently, I think it's been like 4 years now, like discovered graphic memoirs. And I had never heard about them before, but I love it now. George Takei has a beautiful one about his life and his childhood. And it's really tragic because, America kind of fucked over the Asians, but that's what the graphic memoir is about. And I probably never would have read his memoir if I, didn't see the really pretty pictures because I know the story or I've heard the story over the years, but this time I was like, oh, let me pick this up and like have this really pretty visual storytelling, which again was something I never did before. I never read anime as a kid. I never read graphic novels. I was just kind of like, meh, whatever. But if you're struggling with reading, if you're struggling with, finding the time, pick up a comic book. Check out old Batman comics. Check out the Webtoons app and read a story like that because, Lore Olympus started on there and now it's a best-selling hardback book out of Barnes & Noble.
Or some of these authors have turned their series into graphic novel series. So, like, let's say you're interested in Mercy Thompson that we love so much on the podcast. There are graphic novels for those. So if the ebooks or the physically reading, if the audio, none of those, if they don't work, try it.
Something else and see. Maybe surprise yourself. Like I was surprised that I like graphic memoirs. If you liked watching Sandman on Netflix, that's a graphic novel. Go try reading the book and see if you like it better than the show, if it's comparable to the show. There's so many options out there for you.
That is going to perfectly lead into the next topic.
Yes.
But let's take a quick break. Let's take a quick commercial break. You guys check out these commercials by listening to those. You are supporting the podcast. And while you are listening, hop on over on your phone or computer and check out the Shelf Addiction merch store. We have some really cool merch in there, some designs that I made myself. So you can check that out.
Your shirt today.
Yeah, she's wearing one. So yeah, check that out. Support the podcast and we'll be right back. Today's episode is brought to you by the Shelf Addiction merch store. Check out all the bookish t-shirts, notebooks, mugs, and more. Don't miss out on these original designs, perfect for any book nerd. Support the podcast and visit shelfaddiction.com/merch and pick up your next favorite bookish item. All right, welcome back, guys. So number 6 is choose books that interest you and keep you engaged.
Yes.
So
Yes.
So Casey had just got finished mentioning, like, if you're into Sandman the show, pick up the
graphic novel.
Graphic novel for it. So I love TV and movies. Love. And if you guys listen to this podcast for any amount of time, like in the past year to 18 months, you will see a lot of book to movie adaptation episodes. Because not only do I love watching TV, I love to read. So if I can marry those two things together, that's going to motivate me. Like, oh, there is a show coming out that I know I want to watch, But I personally like to read first, watch second. It's hard for me to go backwards.
Yes, same.
But if you know, oh, I heard this movie comes out in 2 months, I know I want to see it, and I found out it's based on a book. Bingo, perfect opportunity. You're going to be engaged because you have a limited amount of time to get it done. You already know you're interested in the story based on the trailers you saw. Chef's kiss.
Yes.
I can't see how that would be a lose.
It's not a lose.
Yeah. It's a win.
Unless the storytelling is bad, but it's a win-win.
But then you can enjoy the TV version, which is going to be probably better if the book was sucky.
Or vice versa.
Or vice versa, because sometimes those adaptations are not hidden, but sometimes they do it justice. And we've seen lots of examples of very good adaptations.
Yes.
So,
yes. And then I want to pivot and say, people feel pressure to like read everything on the New York Times bestseller list, or read the classics, or read things that you're supposed to read back in high school. Bullshit. No. If that's not engaging you, don't do it. If you hate the classics, don't read the classics. If you hate thrillers, don't read thrillers. Like, don't. If you hear everybody reading James Patterson and you don't like his books, then don't read them. Right?
Yes.
Find whatever works for you. And sometimes you have to broaden your horizons by trying different genres, trying different styles. But, read a few pages. If it's hooking you, keep with it. If it's not, put it down and walk away.
Move on.
Don't force yourself to read something that you don't like, because then you're going to dread reading. You're like, oh, God,
exactly. And I
have to read.
Look, I can give you a perfect example of this. And my sister hopefully will not murder me for saying it, but it's a perfect example. One of my sisters loves nonfiction. All she reads is nonfiction, self-help, memoir, all that. And I read it for a little while too, but it wasn't a compliment to my fiction addiction, right? And then I love all the fiction, right? So we read polar opposite of each other. And, she has stopped pretty much recommending books to me because I will not read them. And vice versa. I have stopped recommending books to her because one time, I'm going to tell y'all a little story. One time she played me dirty. No. We tried to come together and read a book together. So we did. We took two things that I thought we would both like. We took someone that she liked politically that wrote fiction books. And it was something that I thought I would like. I read the book. She did not. So when it was time to talk about it, I found out she did not read the book. I was like, get out of here, girl. I read this book
for you.
I picked this author for you. I wouldn't have picked this author. So needless to say, it's fine. I learned a lesson. It's a lesson for you. Do not read stuff you don't want to read. Don't even say you're going to read stuff you don't want to read. And don't read for someone else either.
Exactly.
So if you and your friends just don't align on the books, you just don't align on the books. It's fine.
And it's totally fine. Don't feel like you have to read every self-help book ever, because no, you don't. If it works for some people, that's fine. They can do that. If it doesn't work for you, go read whatever floats your boat. Like, literally, whatever floats your boat, it's out there.
And if you don't read fiction, I don't know what you're doing on this podcast, dude. I don't know, because that's all we do. But, it is what it is. And I get it, because, honestly, there was one year, I think it was 2019, 2018, I can't remember now. I was really trying to do nonfiction. So I forced myself to read one a month that year. So I read 12 nonfiction titles. I had a mix of self-help. I had memoirs. I leaned toward memoirs. Those were more enjoyable to me than the others. And I found some really good ones. If you ever want some recommendations, I have some from that year that I read. But after that, I was really proud that I did it. But have I done it since? No. No. Not that I won't again. But, it was a season. It was a season for that time, right? I enjoyed it for that time. And so, just read what you like.
Yeah. Just read what you
That's
like.
it. It's as simple as
It's
that.
your life. It's your goal. You can read 12
Yeah.
romance books a year and be happy, and screw everybody who says romance aren't real books. Like, screw them.
Throw a book cover on that thing and carry on, or read it in a
Yep.
Kindle. Carry on. No one knows what you're reading
Nobody
anyway.
knows what you're reading.
Yeah. Just be careful with those on audiobooks when you're listening in your car and things start happening.
Mm-hmm.
I found that audiobooks really sound loud outside of your car. You can really hear the vocals.
Oh, no.
I'm like, oh, you can really hear what they're saying, and you don't want certain things happening while you're
And
parked
be
in a
careful,
parking
like you're
lot.
listening to your
Yeah.
phone and it automatically Bluetooth connects to your car and there's people around. Yeah, be
Yeah.
careful.
Or you're at work and your Bluetooth cuts off because the battery dies, and next thing you know, it's like loud on your phone.
Horror story.
Be careful. But yeah, do what you want. Do what you want. That's the
Mhm.
best. That's the point.
Yeah. All right, number 7, use your commute or downtime during the day to read, which we've kind of talked about this already. Like, yeah, audiobooks, lunchtime. I just want to take this moment to say, like, you can download so many free apps to your phone. Like, the Kindle app is free, the Nook app is free, the Kobo app is free, which they just launched their similar to Kindle Unlimited monthly subscription, but it
Mm-hmm.
also includes audiobooks.
Nice.
So for like $10 a month, you have access to all of their ebooks and all of their audiobooks.
And I am a fan of Scribd. I love Scribd. I don't know how much it costs per month now. It's an auto pay. I just use it. But there are so many ebooks and audiobooks. I use that at least 3 to 4 times a month. And it used to be $8.99, but it might be $11.99 now. Somewhere in there. But side note, if you want a free month, it's I got a link down there for you. But I love it. Every single book. I have saved so much money and so much time not waiting on books in line at the library. By just paying a little monthly fee, it just allows you to borrow as many books as you want. There's no limit. You can just take and take and take and read, listen and listen, and then just delete them off your phone. To me, as someone who reads a lot and listens a lot, it's worth it. It's worth it, especially when one Audible credit is $15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh,
This is a big
Audible.
difference. You can read 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 books for $12 versus one for 15. And also diving into this commute thing, like I feel like think outside of the box, right? Not just your regular commute, but like I just got finished flying last week. I downloaded a couple of audiobooks, listen on a plane. Get some
Absolutely,
good earphones that block out the extra noise. You can be having a good time listening or even reading on a Kindle or a book on a plane, in the airport, at the train station, on a train, like if you're sitting in the back seat on a long car ride. Pull that thing out.
Yes, in the back of an Uber and you don't want to talk to your Uber driver, pull out your book and start reading your book.
Yep.
You know, if you have kids and you have to take them to soccer practice, drop them off, sit in your car and read. If you have kids doing anything, you know, if you're stuck in parent pickup, read while you're in traffic.
Yeah.
But like actually stopped, not like the stop and go. Be safe while driving, please.
Yeah, please don't get in any kind of accident and come back and blame us because we're telling you to use your common sense, please.
Yes. Yes. But even like standing in line at the bank, if there's a long ass line, or at the post office, because sometimes those lines are insanely long. And if you have to like be there, this is what I do. I just pull out my phone, open my Kindle app, and start reading.
Yes. And I even have used the audiobook while I'm grocery shopping or shopping in general. I'll put both earphones in. I'm still aware. I have the volume kind of down in case I need to hear something that's happening. But I will go around that store, take my sweet time shopping, and just listen and peruse the store. It's great. It's a fun experience if you've never done it. you know.
I think it would be really fun to do because you're like lost in your book and not,
Mhm.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
it
It
makes
makes
shopping
shopping fun.
easier. Yeah. All right. So, number 8, turn off distractions such as your phone or TV when reading. So, of course, assuming you're not using your phone to
Hmm.
read, I am a fan of turning it off. I have set D&D on my phone before
Hmm.
just so I won't get text and other notifications while I'm trying to actively do something. Again, it's kind of like time blocking, right?
Hmm.
And another thing is that y'all know I love TV, but I don't have the TV on as background noise. I don't do that. If I'm going to listen to this audiobook, I'm listening to this audiobook. If I want to read, I'm going to
Hmm.
read. I'm not going to have the
Yes.
TV on in the background. I don't even like background music because if I start listening to the music, I'm not reading.
See, I like background music, but the classical, no lyrics, like it's just piano, violin,
Mhm.
cello, whatever.
Mhm.
And that's like just enough to stimulate my brain to know that like there's music on, but I'm not focused on it because there's no lyrics, so I don't want to
Yeah.
sing along with what's happening.
Oh yeah, they have playlists like for studying and other things that
Hmm.
are good. But also, if you've never tried this, like I love these soundtracks where you have like cafe sounds or
Yes.
rain or waves. You know, it also
Hmm.
stimulates that other part of your brain, but you don't, it's like literally in the background. You're really not even focusing on it. But just those
Hmm.
type of things too work really well.
Yeah. And again, find what works for you. If music works and helps you concentrate on reading, perfect. If it distracts you, then don't do it. And find a quiet. Well, I guess that's the next spot. But I was
Yeah.
gonna say, like, find your good zone. Find your reading zone.
Yeah. So if that means trying a couple different things, like they
Mhm.
have free videos on YouTube. Now, mind you, if you don't pay for YouTube Premium, those things can be annoying with the ads. But if you have
Yeah.
YouTube Premium, you can play that whole 8-hour soundtrack without not one commercial. Or if you go on Spotify and you have Spotify Premium like me, I can play like a lo-fi playlist for
Hmm.
hours, no interruptions. You really get
Hmm.
in a zone when you're doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and you don't have to leave your house if you don't want to.
No, absolutely not. You stay in. Okay, what's the next one?
So number 9 is find a comfortable, quiet place to read.
So yeah, I agree with you. Like different settings or different comforts for different people. So
Hmm.
what's your comfy room look like?
In bed with fuzzy blankets, like that is my ideal. But I have seen so many things on Pinterest where people like gut an old closet that they're not using and then build a reading nook, and that is something I would love to do someday because I want a whole ass like reading nook in a
Mhm.
library. But yeah, sometimes sitting outside is the best.
Mhm.
I have sat on my back porch while it's raining and read, and I loved it.
Mhm.
That was the atmosphere,
Yes.
and we got to actually create it. Sometimes it could just be like sitting in your bathtub with a bubble
Mhm.
bath.
Oh, I can't do that cuz I hate wet pages. And I'll be so mad if I drop that Kindle in the tub or something, but yes, that's a vibe. You could totally do it. I think for
So,
me my environments change depending on my mood.
mhm.
So, like, I have an office, but I have a nice little cozy chair. I'll sit over there with some tea or wine, sit over there. If it's fall time, I'll turn on a little fire.
Yes. Oh my
Um,
God. Yes.
yes, I cannot read in bed though. I will fall asleep. If I'm in the bed, I will fall asleep.
No.
Yes.
I make a nice little nest. I have one of those like pillows that has the back and the armrests, and I sit with that. And,
Mhm.
I love it.
Yeah, I love all the vibes, like And actually, I want to make a little outside section for myself. I want to do it this year. I wanted to do it last year, but I didn't. Like, I honestly hate bugs, y'all. I hate
Mm-hmm.
bugs. So
Mm-hmm.
I saw this really cool, like, pop-up thing on Amazon that you can put on your deck or patio that has a floor. So I'm like, I was gonna put
Ooh.
this thing up in it. It's like a dome that has mesh on all sides. So
So
I'm
the
like,
bugs stay away.
I'm gonna put a table in there or maybe a little lounger in there with some pillows and really fancy it up, and that could be my little hideout, and it also keeps me shaded from being like the sun beating on my head. I cannot stand that, but
Yes.
I'm gonna have like the coolest outdoor reading space, so yeah, it's gonna be exciting.
Yes, that sounds amazing. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, so you guys tell us what your favorite reading space is. Like, if you have one already, share with us.
If you have pictures of it, please send us pictures because, like,
Yes.
I want to see all of the cozy reading nooks.
Yes, I would love that too. And I love a good Pinterest inspiration. So if you
Yes,
have that, send it.
absolutely. Yes.
Yes. Okay. So quiet place though, I don't know if you necessarily need quiet place. We talked about music, but if you got those kiddos, get rid of those kids. Send
Mm-hmm.
them packing. Send them to the grandparents. Put them in the bed. I don't know. Send them packing so you can do you.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Find your
Uh,
happy place.
exactly. Because you deserve it.
You do.
Yes.
Everybody does.
We do. Okay, so the last one is do not be afraid to abandon a book that you're not enjoying and move on to something else. Hallelujah.
Yes, 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 yes. Do not
DNFs.
finish. Yeah,
Yes.
do not finish. Put it down, walk away, throw it out the door.
Yes. This whole illusion that you must finish every book you start is
Bullshit.
BS. It's we said the same thing, but it's true.
Yes.
Like, we talked on the podcast before about DNFing books,
Hmm.
and I'm an advocate. Like, if it's trash, it's trash. If you're not enjoying it, drop it.
Very, 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 very rarely will it change for you. Like less than 1% of the time.
Yeah.
Because when I was a kid and a teenager, I felt like I always had to finish every single book I ever started. And it would get exhausting because these books would be terrible and then it would end and the ending would be terrible and I would hate everything. Like, it's very, very rarely did I ever find a book that I was like, oh shit, this ending was good.
Yeah.
And now I want to read the next book. Like that, one in a million. It does
Yeah.
not happen that often.
Yeah, it
So if
doesn't.
it's not hooking you, if you're not enjoying it, put it down and walk away.
Yeah, especially if you're not tied to something like a podcast. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, I will push through for this podcast because I'm doing
Mm-hmm.
it with a goal, right? But in my
Yes.
own personal reading space, even for book club, if I'm reading a book for a book club and I hate it, I will stop and I'll
Mm-hmm.
talk about the book with the group up until the point that I can, and then I will stay engaged and ask questions about
What
the
happened
what
next?
happened and stuff like that after the point where I stopped reading. But
Mm-hmm.
I will always give a book club book a try, right? Because I want to participate. But if it's bad, I'll drop that sucker like a hot potato. I'm not playing around. Life is too short. There are too many books to read.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing it.
Mm-hmm. 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 I don't care if it is the number one New York Times best-selling book forever and always, and every person you meet tells you it's the best book ever. If you don't like it, put it
Mm-hmm.
down and walk away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we go through that torture here on the podcast for you guys. But
Mm-hmm.
in our personal reading lives, we do not do that.
Do not. We have quit one series because it was so bad, though.
We have, and that's never happened on the podcast before. That was
It
a
was
first.
bad.
And my goal is to never let that happen again. So I am thoroughly, like I mentioned earlier, researching to the
Mm-hmm.
nines. I am really trying to not let that happen again.
But
I have found
even that
that
one slipped through the cracks because we had good recommendations from people we knew
yeah.
and trusted. It
Yeah.
was paranormal romance. It had good reviews. The blurb said, like, this is something we'll like because it's right up our alley. And
Yeah.
it did not.
It just didn't. It didn't hit.
And
And I
I
haven't
still,
thought about that book since. I have no desire to find out what happened to her or her family. None.
mm-mm. I think the author is writing a spin-off series
Oh no,
or
hard no. Pass.
continuation or something. Like I saw some Facebook something about it a while ago, and I was like, nope, pass, walking
No.
away.
And sometimes it can be as simple as the author just isn't for you. Like we said, it
Mhm.
had all the right ingredients.
Yes.
The ingredients were right, but somewhere in the process of making the book, it failed. Like,
Hmm.
how you have all the ingredients for your cake, you take that shit out the oven, and it's nasty. You messed up the instructions somewhere. You added salt instead of sugar. Something happened, and it's nasty. So
Hmm.
do not eat the cake.
Yes, exactly. And that's
Yeah.
fair and fine because not every author is going to be for every person. Not every book is going to
Hmm.
be enjoyed by every person. Like,
Yeah.
that's just the way it is. If we all liked everything, we'd be boring and monotone and way too similar.
Yeah. Which is not fun. That's fun for no one.
No one.
Okay, so I think we've reached the end of our list.
I think that was number 10. I think that's it.
Yes, we've reached the end. I would love to know from you if you found any of these tips helpful, and
Mhm.
if you found one or two tips that you feel like you can incorporate into your reading to help you. I would love to know that.
Yeah, let
Um,
us know.
yeah.
Show us your book notes. Show us your reading goals. And if it's one book a year, I will cheer you on because that is amazing.
Yay!
Yay!
Good luck, everyone, with your end of the year, the last 6 months of the year. 7 months of the year. Finish strong, do what you can do, and have a good time with it. Just enjoy reading.
That's the biggest thing, is have a good time with it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right, I think we're done. What do you think, Casey?
I think we're done.
All right, it has been a pleasure. Glad you guys are still listening. And if you are, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button before you go. And we will catch you guys in the next episode. Until then, take care of yourselves. Bye,
Bye,
guys.
everybody.
If you enjoyed today's episode and would like to show your support, there are a few things you can do. Head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a positive 5-star review, or like this episode on your favorite podcast player. It seems so simple, but it really helps me out. You can share this podcast with other book nerd friends or on your favorite social media space. You can also join the Shelf Addiction Patreon family. For as little as $2 a month, you will help us produce even more awesome content for your ears. You can also consider joining the Shelf Addiction official Facebook group, where we talk all things bookish and more in a safe space. The Shelf Addiction podcast is a part of the Nerdy Maven network. You can also reach us via email at info@shelfaddiction.com. Thank you for listening.